It's fresh off the press, the packaging and packaging waste regulation. I landed this night, 2 a.m. Yesterday there was the last vote in the European Parliament on the packaging regulation in Strasbourg, and it passed by an overwhelming majority after lots of changes throughout the process. And in this presentation, it's titled as it would be a hit show on the Netflix, Science, Politics and Packaging Waste Regulation. I'm going to give a short overview on the broader perspective from the PPWR. And I'm sure there are questions that I can't answer. That's why I wanted to preempt some by asking Maya. Let's give it a try. And then I will have a case example on the hot topic, which I've been focusing on mostly in the last 2 years. And I must admit there's an empty space in my soul after the regulation was passed. I don't know what to do next. First, my name is Andrei, Global Head of Public Affairs. I've been with Huhtamaki for the last 2 years. And really shortly about Huhtamaki, this will not be a session on Huhtamaki corporate presentation, but for the context, just to give who we are. And Huhtamaki, it's one of the blue chip companies of the Finnish industrial history. We have more than 100 years of legacy, and we've done pretty much everything under the sun, from candies to pharmaceuticals to, for the Finns here, we are also responsible for the jalostaja hernekeitto at some point. But today we are a packaging company, a global packaging company. We focus on packaging. We don't have any other businesses under us anymore. But we are headquartered in Finland. This is Huhtamaki today, and this comes as a surprise to many people in Finland. I think you are, of all the Finnish products, I think, there's a big likelihood you will use kone elevators or lifts, but there's also a big likelihood that you will have your cup of coffee or hamburger from our packaging, regardless what country in the world you are visiting. Or if you buy food from the grocery store, also a big likelihood that is from our packaging. We are about a 4 billion euro company in terms of turnover, about 18,000 employees, 37 countries where we operate. So truly global presence. And I'm going to use the opportunity as a job fair as well. It's an international crowd. If you are into packaging, we are everywhere. Contact us. I'm sure we can talk. And this is what we believe. All of our packaging somehow touches on food value chain or everyday essentials. And we believe that packaging really has a major role, for example, in reducing global food waste. About a third of all the food produced in the world goes to waste. Food waste accounts for 10% of climate emissions. So food waste is a major issue. And we need to tackle that, and we do our part. And here I want to also, although we focus today quite a bit on fiber, we believe plastics has a role today. Plastics will have a role tomorrow, especially in the food value chain. Plastics has qualities that are very difficult to replace with other materials, and especially like in terms of protecting food on the shelf against humidity, temperature control, hygiene issues. Plastics will play a role, and that's from Huhtamaki perspective. We believe that there is a right type of material for the right or every solution that packaging is used. For some it's plastics, for some it's fiber. Now we go to the topic of the day, packaging and packaging waste regulation. The whole thing was launched, it was in the Commission program, and the European Commission came with the proposal in November 2022. And quite ambitious targets, really focusing on reducing packaging waste by 50% by year 2040, compared to base case of year 2018. 3 goals: restrict unnecessary packaging, promote reusable, refillable packaging solutions, and really have like a focus on recyclability of packaging, designed for recycling, and then focusing on use of recycled plastics in packaging as well. The file became, in the last 2 years, very contentious. And again, today, just reading the newspapers on my way here, again, stories on packaging and packaging waste regulation. Somehow it comes close to every person. We use packaging in everyday life, and we are used to the ways that we use packaging. And the regulation will bring some changes to it. And now I'm talking from Huhtamaki perspective. Once the regulation was proposed in 2022, we were quite concerned on some of the proposed initiatives, and where our concern, and I think the broader industry concern stemmed from, was that it was really weak on impact assessments that accompanied the proposal. We saw the proposal having the right targets mostly. We are aligned on the direction, but then on some specific measures that were introduced in the original draft by the European Commission, we know that the impact assessment section was quite weak, or to some extent non-existent at all. And that sparked quite a robust discussion during the last 2 years. And my case study today will focus on the HoReCa sector single-use bans. We will talk about that in a minute or so. And as said, yesterday was a major milestone. The regulation was passed in the European Parliament, the refined version of to put it correctly. It's not the version that the Commission proposed back in 2022, but quite a bit of changed version. And here's just a process diagram for the engineers in the room. There's an orange box. Yesterday was a key milestone. So now the prognosis is that there will not be any more changes. There's still a process of formal approval by the EU Council, but it should be just a formality. And the packaging and packaging waste regulation is expected to come into force in 2026, or to be implemented from year 2026. All right, where the packaging and packaging waste regulation, we can use term PPWR from now on. So intervention area, waste prevention and packaging minimization. As mentioned, there's quite a ambitious target to reduce packaging waste by 15% by year 2040. There are guidelines in terms of minimum weight and volume by packaging, guidelines in terms of empty space in packaging, and then restriction on single-use plastics in HoReCa sector. And again, we will get to that in a minute. And as Maija mentioned, recyclability is a legal requirement. So there's a design for recycling criteria that needs to be followed, and then the packaging indeed needs to be recycled at scale by year 2035. Otherwise, there's no market access for the packaging. So recyclability and actual recycling at scale is a legal requirement, and that will put the industry or it will change the type of packaging that we see in the future, and we are quite happy about that. That's what Huhtamaki is trying to do, to be the most sustainable packaging company in the world. And I think, I would say, generally for the Finnish industries, we are behind these targets. For plastic packaging, there is also quite a significant change. So from year 2030, plastic packaging needs to have amount of recycled content in plastic packaging, and it's a legal requirement, and it seems small, but it is quite a significant change also for food packaging especially. Today, use of recycled plastic in food packaging is very difficult because of the food contact regulations, and mechanically recycled plastic is difficult to or impossible to use in food packaging, and that leaves us with an option of chemical recycling and chemically recycled plastic. This will be a major boost for the investment in the chemical recycling capacity around Europe. There is a target of promoting reuse across many different sectors. I think safe to say, in general, what was agreed in the last version was that carton, paper-based packaging are largely exempt from the reuse targets, but nevertheless, for industry as a whole, the reuse targets will kick in. And for coming closer to consumers, there are harmonizing of labeling requirements for packaging, so consumers can play with the same rules around Europe, and really aiming to boost the collection and recycling rates. Now we get to the topic, and I have some props here. This thing here, this became a symbol for the packaging and packaging waste regulation, paper cup. And lots of political weight was put indeed behind this packaging. Although the packaging and packaging waste regulation covers all the use cases in all sectors, this became somehow the center of the debate in many ways. And the original proposal by the Commission was that from year 2030 onwards, if you go to McDonald's or Hesburger or Burger King, all the single-use packaging would have been banned. So only reusables allowed from year 2030. That was the original proposal. And then for takeaway food and drinks in HoReCa sector, there was also quite ambitious reuse targets. So that's the starting point. We'll soon see where we landed. Maybe on this slide still, this is 95% paper, it's 100% plastic, and this is the reusable. This is, I stole it from Strasbourg McDonald's, where, and this I had lunch in Hakaniemi Mäkkäri 5 minutes ago. And then when the industry started into, like, when we saw the proposal, we were quite concerned. Like, where is this coming from? What is the science behind the proposal? Or is there a comprehensive life cycle assessment? Is it looking to the topic from overall environmental impact, or is it something introduced politically? And here, the principle why for the industry engagement on this topic, it's all based on the current waste framework directive. And we have the waste hierarchy, but in the waste hierarchy, there's a clause that the overarching principle, in any case, should be respecting the overall environmental outcome based on life cycle thinking. And in the Commission proposal to ban single-use packaging, there was not life cycle impact assessment done, and the industry, because there was no robust, comprehensive life cycle assessments in place on this topic, specifically on this topic. HoReCa sector single-use versus reuse, and considering the systems approach and considering the current standard in the HoReCa sector, which is paper-based packaging, by the way. And that's why the industry then employed a consulting company, Ramboll, from Denmark. Ramboll is well known to people around here. Governments across Europe use Ramboll for their own legislative purposes quite often. And the task for Ramboll was to look into the overall environmental impact of paper-based single-use packaging versus reusable packaging in the HoReCa sector, and quick service restaurants. And the work started by collecting primary data. The Ramboll reached out to manufacturers of carton board, reached out to companies like ourselves and the companies who use this type of packaging, so the quick service restaurants. They had data, like primary data, how much environmental impact there is from producing the paper, how about in our converting process, and then in the HoReCa sector, and then even beyond to the end-of-life treatment. Similarly, Ramboll collected data from manufacturer of plastic packaging, and then the washing system, and had a number of sensitivity analyses included in their assessment as well. And the results here on the right side, it's not working. Anyway, on the right side you see the green and red boxes. The results on this comprehensive primary data systems approach, LCA, was that should a quick service restaurant move from the current standard, paper-based single-use packaging, to what was being proposed, a reusable system, which, by the way, is plastics. And this is not just my assumption, this is real life from France, where there is a national level legislation in place since beginning of 2023. This is, as said, a real life example. So switching from paper-based packaging to plastic multiple-use packaging, 2.8 times more CO2 emissions, 3.4 times more water use. And why is that? What brings this somewhat unexpected impact? If you would just do a street gallup and ask people, they would say that reusable is of course better. But why the LCA shows this type of results? The results come mainly from the washing process that is needed for the reusable system. Of course, there's the manufacturing of plastic packaging and so on, and the climate impact of fossil plastics. But then the washing system brings the most impact to this calculation. This needs to be washed after every use with hot water, high energy use, high water use to meet the customer hygiene requirements. And it's not your home washing system, it's a restaurant level washing system. And the data for the washing process was also real life. Am I out of time already?
No, you have 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes. That's comforting. So anyway, the LCA, this is to date, this is on this specific question, the only comprehensive primary data-based LCA. We know there's a LCA, I'm well aware of the Luke LCA on reuse versus single use, but that looks into plastic packaging versus plastic reusable packaging, and it's a different use case for that LCA. And we were quite, okay, then there was the whole debacle with the Joint Research Centre of the EU Commission. In the end, after some robust discussions among the stakeholders, the JRC, Joint Research, which is an independent research arm of the European Commission, they reached out to industry to get the primary data for production of paper, and had the data available, like real life data. And based on the JRC assessment, you see here the last bit, CC alternative 2, which is based on the primary or real life data. There are still some issues with the data, but in any case, this is already giving a indication that also the JRC analysis found the single-use paper-based packaging to have overall lower climate, water, and overall impact than reusable. And it even says on the, okay. I don't know what's going on. Here we go. Here. It's from the summary of the JRC report. Performance of single-use packaging was clearly better, especially for water use impacts category and to lesser extent to climate change and single score when primary data was used. So in the end, if the Commission proposal was to ban single-use packaging in HoReCa sector, the version that was approved today in the European Parliament will not ban paper-based single-use packaging. What it will ban is single-use plastic packaging from year 2030. And then for reuse, there are no more binding reuse targets. So that's the final version of the packaging waste regulation. I'm sure we will have a good discussion on this in a minute. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrei. That is amazing. And it sounds like science-based evidence in this case made a real difference. And the science plus industry to change the original version, I guess.
So what we are pleased is that in the end there was willingness to have a discussion among the legislators in the European Union, and the evidence was brought back to the discussion, and the final version changed.
That's good to hear. So for the sake of time, I'll just ask a quick question. What is then the main next step now for Huhtamaki based on this new regulation?
Yeah, actually we see it as a positive thing. We see that there's a lot of incentive to come with the packaging that is indeed recyclable. It meets the design for recycling criteria and can be recycled to the scale. And that's why in our plastic packaging business we have innovation focusing on monomaterial plastic packaging, reducing layer of plastics and other materials to one material, which can then easily be recycled in the mechanical recycling stream. So we see that the regulation actually supports that strategy. In the case of single-use packaging, I think there's like an industry-wide effort to get rid of the remaining amount of plastic that is in a paper packaging from the last percentage or two. So, and I know Ali has something to say to that as well.
We will have an amazing discussion coming soon. Thank you so much, Andrei.